Welcome, everybody. My name is Denise Fowler. I'm the Director of Career Advancement and Alumni Services for the Trachtenberg School at George Washington University. I am thrilled to be launching this new series called The Future Ready Career Blueprint, Alumni Insights from Growth Fields. I actually just scheduled, and we're scheduling the next one, which is going to be on careers in state, county, and local government. Again, really big career field. Today, we're focusing on nonprofit careers in advancement, corporate partnerships, and finance. I am thrilled with our panelists here today who are going to provide some insights from some questions that we've provided in advance, and then we're going to be opening it up to Q&A. At any point, feel free for the participants, if you have questions, type them into the Q&A so when we open up for that, or you'll have a chance to ask the questions yourself. But you are not here to listen to me. You are here to listen to our phenomenal speakers. So I am going to ask the first question. We'll go around and we have 4 questions to get to with everybody. So the first question is, how has your field or line of work changed in the past few years? And where do you see this heading over the next 3 to 5 years? So I'm going to start this question with Lauren, and each of you will get a chance to answer the question first for all 4 questions. So Lauren, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thanks so much, Denise, and hi, everyone. Excited to chat with you today and share more about my career path. I am a Senior Director of Individual Giving at the Rainforest Alliance, so I have spent the past decade or more in fundraising. I would say my field has changed. The biggest one I would say that we've felt in the past year has been the decline in government funding. We have really had to pivot our strategy for fundraising, focus a lot more on private foundations and individuals. We at the Rainforest Alliance lost 45 million in funding, so that was a really big hit, and that was something that we had to pivot very quickly. Created a resilience fund that we raised more than $400,000 for. Again, it doesn't really hit the 45 million, but it was able to plug holes for some of our most critical activities. Similarly, economic volatility has changed donor behavior. So fundraising from discretionary income has gone down. So things like our annual fund, our recurring donors, annual fund is lower level donors. We're getting an increase in the number of donors, but the amount that they are contributing is decreasing. So we are shifting towards asset-based giving, donor advised funds, stocks, planned gifts, etc. Another thing we're seeing is global events. There's urgency all the time. So when everyone has urgency, there's no urgency because it floods the market and you can't really compete with everything. So we are seeing a surge in success with hope-focused messaging and impact-focused messaging, showing our strength and what we are doing to make a difference. And then I don't want to take too much time, so I'll just say the role of technology, of course, is a big one. So AI, of course, we don't want AI to be relied upon or be the source of any donor-facing information, but it can certainly create efficiencies, help with analysis, etc. So yeah, that's what we're seeing.
Fantastic. We'll go to Elizabeth.
So a lot of similar things I would layer on. So I work in the healthcare space. I'm at Children's National Hospital Foundation. I, just a point of context for today, oversee a couple different divisions within our fundraising, including our corporate partnerships, our cause marketing campaigns, and our community giving, which is anytime a third-party group wants to host a fundraiser on our behalf, whether it's a virtual engagement, a peer-to-peer campaign, or a community-based event. So that's sort of the perspective I bring. It's kind of everything that isn't major gifts rolls up into me. And in addition to some of the things that Lauren talked about, so interestingly, I would say we're seeing more donors down, dollars up is the refrain we've been using. So our total donor count has shrunk, but the average gift amount has increased, which is pretty consistent, at least across the healthcare field with the trend lines we're seeing. And really, we're attributing to people are cutting back on the number of causes that they are supporting, but wanting to double down on what they've decided is most important to them. In the corporate space, we are finding that the uncertainty is really impacting people. We braced for a lot of impact this year on individual donors, assuming that there was a lot of hesitation tied to government shutdown, et cetera, towards year end. But we didn't have as much of an impact as we thought we would, which was a pleasant surprise. But we are finding that corporations are holding on to their discretionary income at far greater rates than we anticipated, and far greater rates than in past periods of economic uncertainty, where there's been more government incentives and things buoying at risk industries. Right now, it just feels like everyone's not sure if they're the next one at risk. And then last but not least, I think in the AI space in particular, so there are jobs and functions right now moving to AI that we couldn't even have imagined a couple years ago. We're piloting some really interesting things like a virtual engagement officer who is going to be like an entry level gift officer. Very transparently, you will know you are communicating with AI, just like I get AI based text messages from my mother's virtual concierge in her apartment building. But it is a virtual engagement officer who can kind of help entry level donors navigate the space. I think that that kind of offboarding of what fundraisers have been doing is copy and paste the same outreach to the same, 400 cold prospects over and over again. The more that we can automate those things and then save room for the things that require actual human interaction, I think is potentially going to be a really big game changer for us. A couple top of mind things.
Fantastic. We're going to keep going around the screen to Janaya.
Thank you. My name is Janaya Wright. I serve as a strategic advisor and interim executive. I help social justice organizations increase their sustainability, efficiency, and impact during cultural leadership or operational transitions. And so I've served as a COO slash CFO since 2014. And since 2020, I've been doing that work as an interim executive. And the title changes. It's like SVP, Finance and Operations, CFOO, COFO. But it's that bucket of work. And I've served organizations like Race Forward, the National Immigration Law Center. And right now, I'm an interim CFOO for Women's Prison Association. And what is that work? It's generally ownership of like human resources, finance, technology, administration, legal and compliance, workplace and culture, and then general board and leadership team coordination. And depending on what the organization is experiencing, this role also holds like change management. Like if there's a strategic plan implementation, this role holds that. If there's a leadership transition, this role holds that. And so this combined COO CFO role in nonprofits, it really emerged as a response to increasing complexity rather than a deliberate redesign. Technology was definitely a major driver, as nonprofits adopted cloud accounting systems, CRMs, grant management platforms, finance and ops became so deeply interconnected. At one point, leaders couldn't see real-time data across programs, people, and budgets. And now that we can, it doesn't always make sense to manage those areas separately. And so organizations started looking for folks that could integrate them. So that was an important driver. I would also say like regulation played a good role, compliance requirements around grants, data privacy, internal controls, governance, all of these things have become more complex. And, there's just an increased need for centralized oversight and really strong judgment across like finance and operations. Last, I'll kind of talk about like global events, especially the pandemic, definitely accelerated the shift. 10 years ago, you'd come across a role that was the combined COO, CFO, and now it's really become the standard. Leaders have to be able to make rapid decisions about cash flow, staffing, remote work, and program changes all at once. And that pandemic moment really highlighted how critical it was to have that cross-functional leadership and vision to kind of manage the money and the mission and the people all together. So the looking ahead piece, I just feel like I don't want to kind of repeat what my colleagues said on the panel. Just there's some overlap there in the thinking. I mean, funding volatility. increased expectations around data and impact, workforce challenges, advancing technology. All of those things are going to continue to shape what this work is, this kind of like COO, CFO work. I would say the most important like takeaway I give you, like the common thread, is that nonprofits need leaders who can manage risk, drive efficiency, and support mission impact in an environment that is, it's increasingly uncertain.
Justine, bring it home.
Plus one to all of that. Justine Ferry, I'm Managing Director for Corporate and Civil Society New Business Partnerships with UNICEF USA, which funds UNICEF's global programs around the world. And I think if you're looking at this space from an international development point of view, it can feel pretty daunting with the dismantling of USAID, with the fact that even UNICEF's voluntary funding from the government was cut. That's about 136 million unrestricted dollars we would get per year. And that's not just in the US, that's European nations as well. That's cutting international development funding. And then laws and different tax codes are being put into place that can affect who we're allowed to accept funding from and how they're able to write off funding, right? So all of those things are really shaping the international development space. And it's causing competition amongst resources. UNICEF USA doesn't directly accept government funding, so we didn't lose any. That all goes to UNICEF, but we're competing against the CARES and Save the Children's that did lose a lot of funding and are building out their corporate, civil society, and institutional pipeline, which is to say, that's why there's jobs in that space. And what that means is, personally, I think that there are tons of fundraising roles, but what's more important than ever now is thinking about how that fundraising can be tied to brand, right? Because we need to build an individual pipeline while we're also building an institutional pipeline. And we need to be thinking about how our brand is out there, how our brand is still relevant, and how we're able to drive donations forward. So I think the future really allows for a change in conversation with individuals and institutions on what partnership looks like. It's not going to be the same as it was 2 years ago, but it means that you can enter into an industry where you can really start thinking about what does the future of fundraising and international development look like. And again, as I said earlier, it can seem daunting, but it's really going to set you up for the next 20 or 30 years, if this is the field you're going to be in, to meet the moment and be excelling and getting ahead of what fundraising means and what program impact means and how we're able to really generate mission-driven results with less staff, less resources, and more competition for those resources.
I love how all of you are nodding and agreeing with each other. We're going to go to the question two, which some of you had started to answer a little bit, but I will go into that if you have things to add, is what skills, experience, or expertise are most valuable for someone trying to break into or advance in this field? And Elizabeth, I'll have you start with that one.
Sure. I, I'm going to give a borderline non-answer answer, which is that I think all skills are relevant. So I just took my team, which is about 29 folks, through a strengths finder exercise. And what I saw was that we had, out of 29 people, a really wide variety of strengths. And for the most part, people in the right spot to use the strengths that they had in different ways. And so I think people think development and they think fundraisers were a bunch of chatty Cathys. Y'all should have seen what Justine and I were like when we first got on before everyone was here and we could catch up. And, that we're all a bunch of extroverts who like building relationships. We have prospect research staff. We have grant writers. We have event planners, and they bring an entirely different skill set. We have writers. We've got people who bring highly analytical. We've got the pivot table master on my team, who's the person who manages our retail campaigns. And I can't imagine taking someone who managed our more sort of sponsorship, building out a deck, complex ask driven relationships, and then asking them to go run what 512 7-Eleven engagements looks like across a region. So like you need people with all these different sets. And I'd say figure out who you are and then what that means for what kind of careers you'd be suited for within this space. So find a good coach, find a good consultant, dive into the internet and unpack that information for yourself. There's all sorts of resources out there. StrengthsFinder is just one. But as I was reflecting on this question, I was thinking, you know, 5 years ago, I might have said like really strong persuasive communication skills. Like that's always something that rises to the top in fundraisers. But I do think the bigger my teams get and the more complex our work gets, the more I'm really appreciating how so many different strengths and skill sets and sets of expertise are required to be successful in a development shop. And that the most important thing is getting the right skill set into the right position. Because when you have that mismatch, it creates nobody's set up to succeed. So I think really like figuring out who you are and then taking the time to understand how that might map out to different roles across development or finance or whatever your interest area might be. There's so many different ones on the call, I'm sure.
Fantastic. Janai, I'm going to move over to you.
Great. Elizabeth, I just want to snap at your response. So great. So yeah, I think the most valuable professionals in nonprofit finance and operations are folks that can connect the dots. You know, it's like strategic financial leadership is key. Organizations need people who can forecast, model scenarios, explain what the numbers mean for real decisions, not just report on them. I also would emphasize like cross-functional fluency and project management, super, super critical. I would say like the strongest leaders, they understand programs, people, systems, and budgets and how choices in one area affect the others, but you don't have to be an expert in everything. You just need credibility across functions, meaning, being able to ask the right questions and to be able to set the people who do know up for success. And when it comes down to governance and compliance, the experience continues to matter. Boards and funders are looking for folks that, can really manage risk, can understand risk, that can ensure accountability, communicate clearly. And if I was just, I would put in like size 100 font, change management has become increasingly important. And I would just venture to say it is in every role, in every organization, regardless of where you are in the hierarchy. We're navigating like funding shifts, growth, restructuring, and leaders, people who can support and guide the organization through change while maintaining trust. I mean, it's a ton of value add. And, the last thing I'll say is like experience working close to mission delivery and presenting to boards can be really helpful on the operational side of the house, but you do not need it. I have never worked in program, and my work has always been to support program. I will say the people with, experience on the program side of the house definitely excel on the operation side of the house because it's valuable insight. But just want to name that you don't need it. The last thing I'll add really quickly, I just love, Elizabeth, what you said about like there's a place for every set of skills. When people think about like leadership work, executive work, consulting work, I think they think of like an extrovert, and I'm definitely not that at all, and have been able, to be successful. So I just want to plus one what Elizabeth said about like finding what you want to do and then finding your place in it. There is a place for you in it. You just get, the work is to figure out what that is.
Fantastic. And Justine?
Yes, agree. I am very introverted, yet a fundraiser, right? So um, I'm going to take a different tact and just say, so breaking into the field, I've hired 5 positions over the last year, from folks I hope to and expect raise 500,000 to folks I hope to be raising $10 million, right? And the most solid piece of advice I can give that sounds incredibly basic is, because of AI, the resumes roll in at the hundreds. And those who rise to the top have a clear resume, a strong cover letter that connects to the role, the mission, and the organization, and write a thank you note. Like that is back to basics, but you cannot believe in this time how important that is to break into a field. And those are the things that I look for when I am just picking who are going to be the four finalists that I am interviewing for a position, right? Like that, you can do those three things. Let me tell you, you'll rise to the top 10% of the 250 applications that people are getting. So just start there.
And finally, Lauren.
Thanks. I cannot agree more. I similarly have hired 4 people just over the past year. One thing I would also emphasize is know where you excel and ask a lot of questions during the interview that can help just narrow down. Like if you know that you need structure, you need to be asking, if you're in fundraising, is there an existing portfolio? Are these people existing donors? Do you have a large donor base? What does a day in the life look like? Am I going to be writing emails on this day? How many meetings am I going to be in, etc. If like at Rainforest Alliance, I'm hiring positions that are doing a lot of building and fundraising versus if you're working in higher ed, you might be doing a lot of just frontline fundraising. You inherit an entire portfolio and you're out there. You're doing fundraising 100% of the time. You never know. What I will say for major gifts is one thing that I ask in every interview is questions about emotional intelligence. There's nothing more important than listening and learning about the donor because if you're just going and pitching them something, they know that you're not listening and you're not caring about what they want, and you are just looking at them like they have money to give you. They can see right through that. So emotional intelligence, the listening is critical. For the building side of things, initiative and curiosity are critical. Learning about the organization, like Janaya was saying, cross-functional collaboration. I mean, most of it is interpersonal skills. I'm also an introvert and a very analytical person, and that has really helped me build out my portfolio and my team and my structure because I know exactly what I'm looking for. I know how to just collaborate across the organization and build that culture of philanthropy.
Fantastic. I think for the sake of time, I'm going to combine these last two questions together so then we have time for Q&A. So any resources or communities students and alumni should pay attention to if they want to land opportunities in the field, like conferences, things that you follow to stay current, events, and what's one hopeful piece of advice you would give professionals navigating transition into this line of work? Janaya, we'll start with you on this one.
Great. I would say relationships are just as important as credentials. Professional associations, state nonprofit networks. These are great ways to kind of get into, nonprofit finance and operations. I would say even learning platforms like Nonprofit Ready or, nonprofit leadership programs. Great ways to get in. And I got to tell you, alumni networks incredibly powerful and often underutilized. And so, in general, though, I would say if there's a nonprofit leader that has a career that seems interesting to you, ping them on LinkedIn. I take meetings often with a person who just wants to understand the career path or what I'm doing, what the job description really means. So I think also feel comfortable just reaching out. In terms of a piece of hopeful advice, I would just say that careers and nonprofit finance and operations, it's not a linear path. Okay. And it can be, but it often isn't. And I think sometimes that can feel like a con for a person that's had a variety of experiences, maybe jumped around a bit. But I'm going to tell you, it's often an asset. So if you're in a career path and you feel like you want to try some other things, I say lean into that. because that diversity of experiences really could set you up for a really great kind of leadership opportunity across different parts of an organization.
Justine.
Thanks. I had said to Denise earlier, I'm pretty lucky because UNICEF USA, we're so big. We consolidate a lot of the resources and information. So I get it at my fingertips without even having to find it. But plus one on the alumni network, I think I'm not really big on conferences, but I think like I keep up with the news. I understand the regulations. I look at the Chronicle of Philanthropy, and I really look at peers and what they're doing so that if you're going in to interview with anyone, you understand what the fundraising landscape looks like and what folks are doing similarly. For my kind of piece of hope, it's what I said before. Like the nonprofit, the UN, the NGO world, we're going to continue to exist. They're going to continue to meet the moment. Like we don't do this work because it's easy. We do it because we're all driven by a mission. In your 20 to 30-year career within this space, there's going to be constant change. There's going to be up and down. So like just, being resilient and meeting the moment and coming in enthusiastic, like it will still be here. The roles, the jobs will still be here. It will look different, but you'll be able to make a change and make an impact.
I love that. Go around, Lauren.
Thanks. Agree with everything Justine and Janaya have said. I would say, again, the LinkedIn piece, reaching out to people that are in potential career fields that you are interested in, whether you are like 100% sure that's what you want or you're just trying to figure it out. People are usually amenable to that and are willing to be honest with you about the ins and outs of their career field. Again, agree with Justine. I'm not a big conference person, but staying informed is very important through a means that makes sense for you. And then one piece of hopeful advice, don't be intimidated if you don't feel like you have the experience to apply to these jobs. Focus on the transferable skills that you do have. Communications, relationship management, strategy, project leadership, project management, change management, all of these things. Every single one of you on this call has some sort of experience doing those things. So just learn how to translate your experience for the career or for the role that you are looking to join.
Terrific. Elizabeth?
Feel like everything I was going to say was said. No, there's really, I want to highlight networking is probably the most powerful thing you can do. I got an email today from someone I barely know referring someone they barely know, but it still is going to get plucked out of that list of 250 resumes because it's just really hard to break through the noise, and the algorithm, frankly. So much like in the work side of things, AI is not going anywhere, but there's no substitute for human relationships. It's the tip of the spear in the work that we do is, the people, whether you're in a people facing role or not, you still need to know how to communicate with your colleagues. And so I spent a lot of my time on the professional development and learning side, focused on not so much at this stage of my career, though I try to stay up with Chronicle and AFP and other groups and fundraising trends, but I'm really focused on sort of the human and psychological element. So like I just finished a really great book on mattering and the importance of that in the workspace. I think the extent to which, particularly those of you looking into like management roles, really being intentional in sharpening those very specific skills it takes to be a good leader. I think that fundraising is a field that is rife with people who are really talented fundraisers who then get teams. And there are a lot of really bad managers in fundraising, guys, because just because you're good at fundraising doesn't mean you're good at leading a team. And so be a person who has chosen to intentionally be great at those things. And that will take you really far. And you'll find yourself working with the same people in different organizations because you get pulled along or you pull them along, or like those relationship pieces are really important. So I'd say don't just focus on the hard skills. In terms of hopeful advice, I asked a couple of my staff this afternoon what they would say, and I said I was going to give the best answer I got from them, and the best answer I got was actually a quote from the movie Clueless. But it is everything is just a jumping off point for negotiations. And so, if I can't do well by my elder millennial roots and quote Cher Horowitz in a webinar, what am I doing? But it is really like the worst that happens is someone says no. Take that to any extreme you want. Email the donor who's been blowing you off and keep trying. Email the person who inspires you on LinkedIn. Send the ping, make the ask. Like the worst that happens is someone says no. But just keep trying until you break through the noise because chances are they just have too many things going on and they just didn't see it. And eventually they'll circle back and they'll thank you for your pleasant persistence. So yeah, just keep taking swings and eventually you'll make contact.
And Janaya, we'll bring it home for this one, and then we're going to open it up for some opportunities for people to connect directly with you, maybe send you messages, but also ask some specific questions. So,
Yeah, I think I kicked us off for this one.
oh, you kicked
I
us.
think I was bringing this home.
You were bringing, oh my gosh. Okay, so with that, then I am going to stop recording and thank all of our alumni panelists. I was nodding along with all of you. I loved the advice and really specific to your field. So